On today's episode of Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show, prominent Chinese psychologist Paul Yin and Pennsylvania-based high school English teacher Trina Kraus are joining us to talk about their heartfelt and inspiring book. It's called Explosions of Joy, a memoir of the grief counselor for missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Now, of course, you can get on Amazon, all those great places, but I encourage you to go to the website, explosionsofjoy.com, and I think it's the best title. You're going to be crying, you're going to be smiling, you're going to be inspired reading this book. It's something that everyone should read, and it's pretty motivating to follow your path and do the right thing in the world. And so I want to welcome both. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm fine.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is different than you being in that hotel and dealing with things, that were a little bit more tough than, being our first Beijing radio guest. So it's a little bit lighter this time, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit lighter, but then again, I guess, doing what I do, you never know when you will be called. So always be on the ready.
Oh, well, very excited to chat with you today and also bring Trina on, who co-wrote your memoir with you. Trina, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is exciting. I've got to give a shout out to our friend Doreen Taylor. Doreen is an incredible musician, and we featured on our shows and the magazine over the years. And Nancy and I love Doreen, and she's like, Nancy, Lisa, you need to read this book. You need to meet my friend Trina. Like,
that's awesome.
Okay. If Doreen says so, of course. But I want to know, we'll ask you a little bit about your relationship with her in a little bit, because we're going to have to play her music, yay.
Yes, absolutely.
But tell me about how you met Paul.
I met Paul through a mutual friend named Ken. Ken is a friend of mine he's a mechanical engineer, and Ken met Paul just by chance at the Beijing airport long before MH370, and they just became fast friends. They are like-minded and both extremely intelligent, and Ken convinced Paul to put his story into a book. But between the two of them, they thought, well, we need someone to kind of dig in and make sure it reads nicely. So Ken tapped me and said, hey, you're an English teacher. Can you help us write a book? And I said, well, I'm not a writer, but I guess I can help you write a book. So then I got acquainted with Paul, and from the first time I read what he had written down, I just knew this had to be put into a book, and I was so excited to help.
I think it's exciting. Did you get your red pen out? Just like
well, nowadays it's not quite like that. I took everything digitally, and I reworked it, but so much of what he had down was so valuable. I knew that it had to be put into an accessible version for everyone to be able to read.
Yes, I hope this gets published in many different languages, and I think this is so important because it talks about the importance of our mental health. And I think it's something that even here in America, where Paul, you studied in America, and then, hey, I went over back home to China and said, hey, we need to adopt this more. And I had no idea, when I thought about China, I was always thinking, that's where the ancient wisdom comes from. Exactly. And so I'd never thought that, psychology wasn't part of the world of China. And so for you to take it back home, that was quite a challenge.
Yes, it is quite a challenge because in many ways it is culturally, not very competitive. Ancient wisdom, yes, but the thing is, psychology, it's not intended for people who are not intelligent. Regardless of your intelligence, people face challenges that they have difficulty with, and they will need professional help. So even though we have a society where I think we have lots of what we might call, mutual help network from family to friends and so on, but especially during special circumstances, they do need professional help, but we have a culture where people don't go out for help. Help usually comes from within the family, within a circle of friends. But when and it almost like a taboo to get help for personal problem outside, and so something that needs to be overcome. And I was in the U.S. for 22 years. I'm kind of used to this being part of my world. But when I came back here again, I realized that this country, especially with the fast development and everything's moving forward, but based on basic human needs are being challenged. And so I decided to come back and bring this concept of psychological intervention to China. And it was very challenging.
Yeah, reading Explosions of Joy, and I mean, that to me is just is the best title. Reading how you were working, with another gentleman who's like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to make it happen this time. It's like, it's like almost like the movie star, man. Like, here's the agent, hey, da-da-da, you're going to have this happen. And then you just keep getting those brick walls, but it's like, okay, but you have this incredible patience of understanding that change doesn't come immediately, that this is a journey. And I think that it comes from your studies and who you are to be able to understand this passion, this passion you have of helping people, but also understanding that patience needs to be aligned with passion.
Absolutely. And also anything worthwhile, you're not going to get success immediately. It takes a process, and sometimes maybe it takes, maybe in the end I don't succeed, but there will be other people inspired to join this.
I do. I'm going to say too, when you get people to start to open up, you seem to, in the different stories of your life, when you're connecting with different people that need help in different ways, if now Nancy, my mom, said to me, now Lisa, you need to go see a psychologist. I'd be, well, like, I know, but but it'd also be like there is something where you go, okay, I'm scared, because it is almost like, it's a doctor, it's like going to a dentist, but now it's like, then there's a different feeling of it being needing, it's not just mental health, right? This is an emotional health.
Yeah, and also there's another situation, which is when you're experiencing something that is so different and no one has experienced before, and it's difficult for them to trust that anyone actually understands what you're going through and how you're feeling.
And I think also with your story, where you're really going through your life and your studies here and what you did, and I want people to hear about how you lived when you first got to this country and went to school. I mean, it was you lived like in a little box, basically. Listening to this story is incredible, but just keep going and having this passion and just keep going and keep going. Part of that also too is you always find a way to identify with the person you're connecting with, and you seem to. That's how you can bring them their emotional medicine, if you will, is by connecting by something that they're passionate about.
And I think, excuse me, I think so much of it is really, going through and, my early childhood, during which I really didn't have much help around me. And so I had to, I think starting 3 years old, I was living alone for a while. And so I learned so much about observing and basically understanding the people around me so that I can connect with them. That's how I get help for my life, from my neighbors, from strangers, and so on. And so maybe that early childhood experience helped. I don't know. But the thing is, I always believe that any experience that you go through, whether at the time it seems good or bad, is always something that you can benefit from. It gives you something that other people who didn't have this experience could get. So I think that's one of the things maybe I learned from early childhood is to just observe and feel what the people around you are, and what they need, and what they have inside of them, and then connect with that. And that has always helped me before. And so maybe that could be part of it. And the other thing is I went to college real early. I was 15. I went to the best university in China, Peking University, which is like the Harvard of China, when I was 15. And very soon I kind of got bored because I was put on this golden path, and I feel like it was by someone else's design, and I just need to close my eyes and just keep walking forward, and I'll have a successful life. And later I thought of, right now I'm teaching the Odyssey to high school students in China, and I'm thinking about the story of the Odyssey. It's a long journey that went through so many twists and turns and difficulties and so on. And then in the end, he got to Ithaca. But it's not about getting to Ithaca as fast as you can, but it's about the journey. And the journey, maybe sometimes in the journey you feel desperate that maybe I'll never get there. But somehow just having that goal in mind and moving in that direction and doing everything that you can, it's really the meaning of life. It's not by getting there. You can be airdropped to Ithaca, but
for sure, exactly. You keep going, and I think it prepared you for when with the Malaysia Airlines of handling that situation and working with everyone, because it was, Nancy and I have been through a number of disasters in life, wildfires, evacuating in a year and a half, 7 times from a wildfires, hurricanes, bombs, guns at our head, you name it. It's kind of been there, because we've traveled, and that things happen, and I won't take a minute back of any of it, but there is this, I think what was so hard about Malaysia Airlines, that flight 370, was that not knowing part. And you really go in depth about this, where the families didn't know, and you were then started building conspiracies because of not knowing. Did something else happen to my family that was on board, But this not knowing, it wasn't like, hey, there was a car accident, this is what happened to Uncle Joe here, and now we know. This was, they were missing, the passengers were missing. And so it's hard not to build things up in your mind. Do you feel like all your training and work you have done over the years set you up for being able to work with the families?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, it's almost like by design. It's like all my experiences are, building up to doing something that is, really difficult. And I also remember on the evening of the first day of the Malaysia airline, I contacted a friend who worked on the TWA crash many years ago in the U.S. and basically asking him for some support and advice. And he just told me, he said, Paul, you have to just tell yourself that you are the expert in this field. And you just have to trust that. And you're put there to do it because you can do the job. Because there's really no reference for this, because it's unprecedented. And also the difficulty, I explained to people, I said, no matter how low you are, you can use wherever you are, at the bottom of a valley as a starting point to recover. But with the plane missing, there isn't a starting point. No matter how low you are, the next moment you might think, oh, maybe they will help them, maybe they can find them, maybe they're in a desert, maybe they got lost. And then the next moment you think, oh my God, it must have exploded in the air, and so on. So you just keep going up and down. And so as a helper, there's not a lot that you can do, because there is no starting point. And whenever they're up, they will be down the next moment. And whenever they're up, they're down. Eventually they will come up for a few moments. And it was like a roller coaster for the longest time. And that's really the difficult part, and it required lots of patience from me and a few people who are on my team. And we keep stressing that our help, especially in the initial stages, is not trying to get them to feel optimistic or so on. They're going through this roller coaster, and what you need to do is to be with them so that they're not alone through this process, and actually do rather minimal intervention, which require not only great discipline, but also is emotionally very difficult, because you really feel their pain and their emotional trauma, almost as much as anybody. And you are also taking on dozens of cases, and so you're feeling all of them at the same time, and it's really difficult because of that.
And I think, and you had a team, and you had people lined up, with the States and in China, that helping you also staying up, because you had to balance out. Everybody had to make sure everybody was okay, because when people need help, it could be 2 a.m. It's not on a 9 to 5 schedule when it comes to something like this. And I think that was really interesting how you had your team, you set up people to help you, and at the same time you also had people that you had helped in the past that you were training them. So you were training the families themselves. So you're like, we're gonna educate people on what to do, how to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the key part of my strategy, because with so many families, and we only had 3 or 4 people with me, and there's no way we can help so many people. So our strategy, a key part of the strategy, is actually to train the family members to establish almost like a support network around the core members of the family, so that this network can stay with them for a long time.
I think that is something that should happen without it being a disaster situation. I feel like we need that now, and it's global. I think that the family unit needs that part of being able to be strong for each other and understand how to be there.
Well, actually, I think that's a key part of any healthy society. I think it's one of the unfortunate thing about the latest, very technologically driven modern society, in that the family is being weakened, or at least it's the function of the family as really the primary unit of social support for each member of society. And when every family is strong and supportive of each other, the whole society will be healthy.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I look now what's happening in our country with all of these mass shootings, and we lived in Africa for many years, and there was gun violence, and there was all kinds of violence, and many times none. Every place has its thing, and right now, like our country right now, America, there's a fear to it. I mean, where are you safe if you can't go to your temple, your church, your synagogue? Where are you? And so this fear breeds. I remember when we first got back to this country, and we took a little family road trip with my grandparents, and they're little people, and we're gathering around. We got lost in New Orleans at night, and we didn't know we were going to go there, and we were getting in the car, and not as aware as Nancy and I are very, very aware from traveling and, being women travelers. And because we were just talking too much, go figure, I got myself in a predicament getting in the car that this gentleman who was probably on drugs because his eyes were all crazy, had a gun to my head, and nobody could see the gun. And it got really scary. We went around through all of us, and we eventually stood up and started chasing him, which was stupid, but it was the way it was, just coming from places that we've been, And by the time we got back home and got through this ordeal, the next day I flipped out. Like I could, any place, like a friend of mine had made me drive to his house at night by myself so that I would just get through it, because every time I stopped at a stoplight or a stop sign, I realized that anybody could just get in your car and have a gun to your head and you're done. And I look at what's going on in the country now, just going from that one small experience that we had, how that impacted me for about a few weeks to just get past that. How are we all going to get through this? How do we change it? How do we make it that that's not our lifestyle? And I think it comes down to that unity, that emotional help and help that has to happen.
Yeah, that's, I remember having a gun pointed to my head twice when I was in the US. And, but the one that's really interesting was that this gentleman had a gun to my head, and I started talking to him. And then after a while, he put the gun away and we continued talking, and as if we're two friends. And then 20 minutes later, he left. And 30 seconds later, he came back and he said, he apologized. He said, sorry about that. And I said, well, go home and hug your family. And I'll never forget that. And then you realize that much of this is because when people go through whatever difficulty they do, they are lonely. Okay, you could be a member of a family, but if you went through something that the rest of the family could not possibly comprehend or understand, then suddenly you're lonely again, right? So people who go through these challenges, all different type of challenges, actually need help because they're lonely. And if you present yourself as a person who says, okay, I know you're on a different path and you're not alone, I'm with you. Sometimes I can help you, but maybe I cannot even offer much more help than just walking along with you and listen to you when you're talking and nodding my head and handing you a tissue. When you have tears in your eyes, maybe that's all I can do, but I'll make you feel so much better. And eventually you will find your way out of this. Not me helping you out of it, but you will help find your way out of it, and that will make you stronger.
Lisa, I love listening to Paul. Like, aren't you so happy to hear him share just different things about his life? It's the same way I felt when I was writing the book for him. Like, everyone needs to meet Paul. Everyone needs to hear his stories. And right now I'm hearing from Paul a story that I had no idea happened. And I just am reminded about the first time when I looked over what he had written, and I was like, everyone needs to hear this. Everyone needs to get to know Paul.
Book two. That's something I was going to ask you, working with him and writing this together, because it's always interesting about doing that kind of project together, because this is such an incredible story. I mean, we can't cover it all on a radio show. You need to read the book, and it needs to be a movie, just saying. Hollywood. Hello. So when I really believe everybody like you do, Trina, needs to read this and understand this, because there's so many life lessons and they're true stories, and that's one of the best things to learn from is true stories and that connectivity. For you, when you were going through this and writing it and putting together, I know what it's like to sweat at a computer, like, okay, and take on a responsibility like this because you want to get it right, I know that about you. I've read your blog. Everybody, you got to follow that. When you start writing this, did you start to learn things yourself? Did things change for you in this process?
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite people in the book is named Trina, and I really connected with her. Actually, I've literally connected with her since writing the book. She was one who had been I think she was a college student when she met Paul Yin, and she needed some help. She was in a space where she just wasn't able to get through her schooling and things and function because she was dealing with some mental issues. And Paul Yin, instead of just doing, okay, come see me twice a week for counseling, he said, and that was right around the time of the Sichuan earthquake. And Paul Yin said, Trina, you know what? Can you come with me to the area where the earthquake happened? And I'm going to have you learn some things. She went with him to that area, and she just sort of did different roles. She was almost like a secretary. She sat in on a lot of his training. And that's how he took her under his wing and just made sure that she was made whole at the end of it. Paul doesn't just, okay, here's a dose of psychology, this should do you. With Serena, he changed her life, and I felt like Serena. I am forever grateful to be involved in this project. A whole bunch of things had to come together in order for me to be involved in this, but this was destined to be my project too, and I am so grateful to be part of it. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, the title of the book actually came from something that Serena said.
That's right, yeah.
Explosions of Joy.
I like it.
Yeah. I love it. Serena's story is interesting, and there's also a lady in there, I think it was the SARS epidemic that you were working on. And yes, it was the SARS epidemic. And she was helping people in the hospital. She was a nurse, I believe a nurse or a doctor. And she just started to freak out about taking it to her kids. And they were working 24/7 around the clock. And Paul, you got her to kind of go back to remember you're a mother, right? Who are you as an individual? And you helped her change by remembering her most important role.
Yeah, I just, we had a call, and she was freaking out. And I told her, I said, you have to remember who you are. Forget about you being a doctor. From this moment on, I want you to remember what it is like to be a mother and be a mother. Mother will be your role for every moment from this point onwards. And so when she went to the first patient, who was a little girl, just like her daughter, and she just looked at the girl, and the girl has lost some family members already. And the girl says, "You're not going to watch me die, are you?" And the doctor said, "No, I am now your mother, and no mother will watch their children die." And and then she said, even when I work with a elderly person, I also treated them like my child. And I just use my motherly instinct instead of the doctor. And so that's how she helped her patient, and that's how she helped herself.
Wow. Okay, so this is amazing. Your story going, and getting China to say okay to psychology, right? Are we still in the battle mode with that? Are you still having to spread the word, the good word of the importance of it?
I think right now it is much better. I wouldn't say as much a battle as it is to get the public in general to put down their guards and to open up to this type of help, and also to try to bring psychology. See, people are reluctant to bring their personal problem out to strangers. And we try to solve these problems within certain comfort systems, like within a family or within circle of friends. And I try to bring this within these circles where they feel comfortable. And one of the things that we have done is to bring it into, let's say, companies, the workplace, where people are, form like almost a kind of a family or mini society type of situation, and bring it in there in terms of things like employment, employee assistance programs, things like that, and make it work within that system. And it has helped lots of people that way.
Right. I love that part of it, how it connects. And I know, Trina, now I'm saying now you've got to be the ambassador, right? Do you want to see this as a movie?
That would be really fun. Cool. Actually, there is a documentary coming out with an interview with Paul in it. Paul, is the documentary called Dream? Is that the working title?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's called Dream. It's being produced by Unveil Studios. They're based in Canada.
Oh.
So that's I think it's a rather short interview clip with Paul, but it's not based on explosions of joy, which that could definitely come. That would be awesome.
I think that would be awesome. I love this. I love that you're connected with the project because you're also a teacher. I love that, Paul, now you're teaching, biology. I mean, the world never ceases to amaze us, right? With how we can keep doing new things and keep on. I love the education role that you both have for sure. But Paul, I do want to get back to this one question at the beginning was getting to America and how you lived to get through college, because I think it's important for us to remember that we don't need a mansion to make things work, right?
Exactly. I gave up my golden path because I thought it was not challenging enough. And I don't feel connected to the path. It was like it was society's design. And so I wanted to soar like an eagle. I want to find my own path. So my first personal space was actually a storage room. It's a motel that has 3 storage rooms. And then so I said, well, if I can put all these stuffs in 2 rooms, can I use the other room to live? And they said, sure. So I got this one room that is roughly maybe 8 by 8 or something like that, with no windows. And I somehow fit in a bed, a desk, and a refrigerator in there. And during the day, I put stuff on the bed, and at night, I throw them on the floor so I can sleep on the bed. And in the middle of the night, in the summer, in the California desert heat, it could be 100, in the middle of the night. But I was so happy because this is my world. This is the beginning of my world. Everything start, the tallest trees start with a single seed, right? So that was like my little world, and I know that from this something great will happen. And when my mom saw that room many years later, my mom cried, and she said, everyone thought my son was in America, building this beautiful life, and actually he was living in this, this type of condition. And I said, Mom, don't cry. I said, because when I was in here, I was the happiest person. It's not about what you have. It's about the path that you walk on that you identify with. And if you feel like you're living a life of meaning, you're happy. And yes, I try to achieve my goals. But even if in the end, the goal was not achieved, but I was walking on the right path, I will still be happy.
I agree. I love that because it is about that for happiness. And I think if you're on that the path of unhappiness, let's put it that way, where you're not aligned, with where you are, who you are as a human, that's when the unhappiness starts. That's when things get out of whack, as we can see in the world,
I think it's really difficult here and now, and it probably has been throughout human life, the idea of what everybody you feel the people around you expect from you and what you can actually do and what you want to do. And sometimes I think the peer pressure, especially now with the internet and social media, can get way out of whack, and I think it could do great things, but it can also be pretty bad. Yeah, and I love to see an internet and social media where people aren't taking shots at each other and being so mean all the time. I mean, it's kind of like, I think we need each other.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a time in their life when they really do need help. And it's hard now, on the internet. Like if you feel like you have to ask for help and you go on the internet, whoa. I mean, it could be real bad,
or it could be real good. It's a either or, yeah. It's a either or.
But it's the idea that you don't know what it's going to turn out like. I think the human race has a real problem with the idea that we just don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know. We think and we predict and we work towards something, but at the end of the day, we really don't know what's always going to happen all the time. And it seems to drive us a little bit around the bend.
Well, I think it is okay to not know.
Yeah.
I think one thing about the information age is that perhaps we're getting more information than we actually need, number one. And number two is different things become magnified. So actually could be quite out of proportion. And we spend so much time on the internet, on all the different apps that we use. But what we really need now more than ever is actually to make more simple, basic human connections with the people around you. And then you realize that, no, I don't need to look at everything that's going on, everything that's wrong in the world and try to change it. Instead, I just need to make my little world, the people I'm connecting, better. And make a positive impact on the people around you and be helpful. And if you need help or the people around you need help, when you have this trust, with even just a few people around you, and you realize that actually asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a proactive act of strength. And this way, you make it's like you make the body better by making every little cell healthy, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that, because it's true. If you try to do everything yourself too, you're just going to go crazy. I do want to ask you, Trina, as a teacher, especially with being an English teacher, how do you feel about all technology just writing things for you now? I mean, you try to write a Gmail and it tells you here's your 3 options now. I mean, what do you feel about that?
I would not recommend using that. I like original thoughts.
Yes. Yes. Even if the punctuation's a bit off, it's better to be original than to have somebody fill your sentence up before you can even complete your thought.
Do kids now in high school, are they ever actually using a pen and paper? Does that exist anymore?
It exists. I tell my students that we're doing a low-tech activity.
That's funny.
I like that. I like that. I think it's so important because, to me, writing down, then it gets in your system. You know what you're doing. You've done it now.
It's like challenge. I understand that you can paint a picture on your computer, but as a person who paints, or did for many years, and make a living at it, I want to put the brush in the paint. I want to smell the paint. I want to get messy with it, and I want it to go on the canvas.
She wants the turpentine.
Yeah, I do. I don't want it to be on a little screen and you can make it perfect.
Yeah,
I don't want.
Yeah, and also, being a psychology teacher, I tell people that there are also more ways to connect with people around you than just texting and on the internet. You can use your body language, a hug, a smile.
Yeah.
All these things are making connections actually in a far more effective way.
Absolutely.
I agree. Now, I want to ask each of you one of my favorite questions, because I think this is important. You were talking about this earlier, about taking a walk. We have a Facebook group we started. It's called 1 Hour Walk. Hashtag everybody, hashtag 1 Hour Walk. And so this is a positive social media thing where people post a photo or say, hey, I took a walk here. This is where it is. And we've seen, from England to Africa, all these different places that people walk. And it's about mindfulness to us. Sometimes it's about a conversation. We walk every morning. We start the day with the sunrise, hopefully, depending what Sky wants to do.
Yes.
And there's nothing better than that. That's an explosion of joy. I love the word explosion of joy. That's saying, I just want to go, how many explosions of joy can you have in a day? I want a lot. Doing a walk, taking a 1 hour walk in the morning and starting my day is an explosion of joy. That's it. So I wanted to ask each of you, if you could take a 1 hour walk with anyone in the world, alive or passed on, just to have that meaningful time with them, who would it be? Where are you taking that walk? And we want the gossip of what you're going to talk about, because you're both writers and you both talk to students and people and connect. So we want to know the hot topic. So Paul, let's start with you. Where are you taking a walk and with who?
Well, first of all, I kind of like the idea of me not picking the person, but it's almost like divine intervention that sends someone to me. So I would pick the person, whoever the person that happened to run into me. And so this way, I also gain a new connection. I make a new friend. And I'll follow that person to where that person wants to go. And that is kind of like my style and how I live my life.
I like that. That's the first. And so the conversation would be whatever happens, right?
Exactly.
It's like, you're spontaneous. That's an explosion of joy. It's like, hey, and then you find out, I think that's the cool thing about travel. I know you do a lot of travel too, Paul, and there's like, you meet all these people and it opens your eyes like,
yeah,
wow.
And I don't have detailed itinerary. It's like, I remember once I had a 2-week vacation, from LA, and my plan was basically go east, and if I see a crossroad, turn left, and whatever happens, happens. And it was the most wonderful 2 weeks I had.
Well, you should travel with us. We just stayed in the car, and then if we like the name of the street, we turn on it.
Exactly. I get lost.
We get lost, and we go in circles a lot.
That's going to be my tagline from now on. My name is Lisa Smith, and I get lost wherever I can.
Yeah.
That's it, because it's true. It's true. Getting lost is the best thing ever. We do not have GPS. It's not allowed. Because there's something about the map, and there is something about getting totally frustrated when you're completely lost in traffic and you're on the wrong side of the road. There is something beautiful about it later. Seriously. I know people
really
think
funny.
I'm weird on that, but it's true. So Trina, who are you walking with?
Well, as an English teacher, I think I would like to go for a walk with Walt Whitman. Paul Yin and I do share a love of some of the romantic poets, and I would love to just listen to Walt Whitman talk and hear more about him personally and his way of looking at things. I would go for a walk with Walt Whitman. Maybe I don't know where. Maybe like in New York City, where we can hear America singing.
All right. Why not? Hey, I like that. Can I come? I want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. I mean, and he gets down to nature and gets straight to it too. Like it's yeah. And I love him as well. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure. We could talk to you all day long. I know that students are going to come into class any minute right now, right, Paul? And
exactly.
What are you teaching today? What are you teaching?
Well, today it is the psychology of learning.
Oh, that's perfect. That's great. I love that. Because there's so many different ways, right? We listen? Are we reading? Are we visual? I love that. That goes with you too, Trina. And I want to tell everybody to go to your blog, TrinaAKraus.com. That's Kraus.com, TrinaAKraus.com, and follow her blog. It's fascinating and fun, and it's a teacher's blog. It's good.
Thank you.
And also go to the website explosionsofjoy.com and go get the book. It's on Amazon, all those great places. Explosions of Joy, a memoir of the grief counselor for missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, definitely by Paul Yin and Trina A. Kraus. And we want to thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Super Camp. You all hear Bobby DePorter on our shows all the time. She's the co-founder of Super Camp, which is the #1 teen summer residential camp to increase grades, confidence, and motivation. And at Super Camp, students learn lifelong learning skills they can apply to any subject, skills that build competence and confidence. And they serve as a roadmap to academic success. Awesome. It's about knowing who you are. It's awesome. It's all based on the foundation of the 8 Keys of Excellence. So check out supercamp.com. And don't forget, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com to listen to our shows when they stream live or anytime later on demand. Everybody, we're going to close with the song Unstoppable. It is from our friend Doreen Taylor. And she introduced us to Trina. She says, girls, you got to meet Trina. She wrote this amazing book with this amazing man, and I'm reading it, and you got to read it now. And I'm like, okay, if you say so, Doreen. Trina, have you known Doreen for a while?
Yeah, we went to high school together.
Oh, yeah. Here we are. Cool. We're still in high school, no matter what. None of us are getting out of school.
That's it. I want to talk to her again.
Right on. Oh, we have to do another show. I want the scandal on her. No,
let's.
No, she is one determined cookie, and I love that.
Yes.
latest album. She's doing shows and off Broadway theater. I mean, she just doesn't stop. So we're going to play the song Unstoppable because, Paul, you are unstoppable. Trina, you got that too. And Doreen definitely has it. But it's on her album Happily Ever After. Beautiful, beautiful album. And you can go to DoreenTaylorMusic.com and get it in all outlets. But go to her website, Doreen Taylor Music, and follow her on social media as well. Thank you both for joining us.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you fall, get up on your feet and dance. When you're done, get back in and give it a chance. When you're down, don't let people push you around. Yeah. You are unstoppable if you take it day by day. You are unstoppable. It's meant to be, we'll always find a way. Rain is coming down, the sun is coming out, light is gonna shine on you. Never give up on yourself, and the world will never give up on you. When you're lost, hope is never too far away. When you've given up, remember that tomorrow's another day. When you feel you're at the end, take time in what you do. Your strength will always pull you through. You are unstoppable. Yeah. If you take it day by day, you are unstoppable. Yeah. It's meant